Well, good morning, Asia. Good evening, America. You're tuned into World DNA, and I'm Jyotsna Kumar.
And I'm Diksha Bisla, and coming up on the show today, fresh US and Iran nuclear talks are expected to begin soon, after both sides signed a peace framework aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz and ending the US naval blockade. Now, the negotiations will test whether Washington and Tehran they can reach a new nuclear agreement amid heightened regional tensions. We're going to get you all the details on that front on the show today. Stay tuned.
Well, also on the show, from another war front, Ukraine has launched its largest drone attack on Moscow since the start of the full-scale war, targeting key infrastructure and disrupting air traffic in the Russian capital. Now, Russian authorities say hundreds of drones were intercepted overnight, with the barrage highlighting Kyiv's growing long-range strike capabilities. We'll bring you all the updates on that as well, and of course from across the world as well. Let's begin with the headlines.
White House says J.D. Vance will not travel to Switzerland for planned Iran nuclear talks, citing difficult logistics for negotiations. It adds that U.S. team remains ready to depart once plans for technical talks are finalized.
Iran's Supreme Leader Moshtaba Khamenei says he approved deal with U.S. to protect Iran's interests despite having a different view. He adds future face-to-face talks with U.S. are possible but would not mean accepting the enemy's position.
And the denial of basic freedoms have brought matters to a point where even demand for bread, electricity, rights and dignity are met with bullets and brutality.
India raises concerns at the UNHRC over conditions in POK, citing deaths of protesters in Rawalakot and accusing authorities of suppressing basic rights. Indian diplomat Anupama Singh says that protesters' demands for bread were met with bullets and brutality.
And
U.S. and Israel demand Hamas disarmament at UNSC, while Palestinian envoy Riyad Mansour accuses Israel of killing over 1,000 people and causing a humanitarian crisis. Israel rejects claims, blaming Hamas for exploiting aid and violence.
U.S. military says it carried out a strike in Eastern Pacific, killing 3 men, with no U.S. casualties reported by Southern Command, amid ongoing attacks on suspected drug boats that rights group call unlawful extrajudicial killings.
A group linked to Al-Qaeda claims attack on Diori Hamani International Airport in Niger's capital, Niamey, that killed at least 11 soldiers and 2 civilians. Security forces repelled the assault, killing 22 attackers in the fighting.
About 100 guerrillas surrender their weapons in Colombia's Putumayo, marking the biggest achievement of President Gustavo Petro's Total Peace Initiative ahead of the country's presidential runoff election.
The U.S. dollar index hits one-year high after a hawkish Fed stance and strong economic data boost rate hike bets. In pressuring global currencies, markets price a September hike with rising yields and growth optimism supporting further dollar strength.
Johnson David scored a hat-trick at Canada crushed Qatar 6-0 as it moves closer to the first ever World Cup knockout stage. Qatar finished with 9 men after 2 red cards in a dominant Canadian win.
The U.S. and Iran have agreed to an interim deal to halt fighting.
But the White House is facing increasing backlash over the terms from allies, with domestic and abroad, and President Trump and his team are defending the deal, insisting that the U.S. is not paying Tehran and that any economic benefits for Iran depend on full compliance with the agreement.
Now, Vice President J.D. Vance especially lashed out at Israeli critics of the deal, warning them not to alienate their only powerful ally left in the world. The terms of President Trump's deal have drawn a strong response from many Israeli politicians and sections of the Israeli media, with some directly blaming President Trump.
What I will say, and this does bother me, is that you've seen people within Bibi's cabinet who have come out and attacked the deal and in some ways very personally attacked the President of the United States. And I guess my message to them would be twofold. Number one, Donald J. Trump is the only head of state in the entire world who is sympathetic to the nation of Israel at this moment in time. And he happens to be the head of state of the world's superpower. If I was in the cabinet of the Israeli government, I might not be attacking the only powerful ally that I have anywhere left in the entire world.
Vance credited Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for not personally criticizing the deal, but explicitly referred to the large amounts of military aid that the United States provides to Israel, its key ally in West Asia.
The other thing that I would say is that over the last 3 months, 2/3 of the defensive weapons that have protected your homeland have been built by American hands and paid for by American tax dollars. The problem for Israel is not Donald J. Trump. And anybody in Israel who thinks their biggest problem is the President of the United States needs to wake up and smell the reality of the situation.
In an interview with the New York Times published on Thursday, Vance directly named Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich as critics of the deal. Vance said that Israel cannot simply kill its way out of every national security challenge.
U.S. President Donald Trump urged Israel and other West Asian countries to stick to the truce. Taking to his Truth social network, Trump said that he expects a complete ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Israel.
But Israeli drone attacks and artillery shelling continue in Lebanon. Hezbollah said its fighters were engaged in fresh clashes with the Israeli military hours after Lebanese state media reported that Israeli strikes in the south killed 3 people.
Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader has approved the deal and direct negotiations with the United States. Mojtaba Khamenei, who became supreme leader after his father Ali Khamenei was killed in an airstrike on the very first day of the war on February 28th. He said in a written statement that he had approved the deal despite having a different view, without elaborating further.
Now, the signing of the deal by Trump and Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian set in motion a 60-day period for talks on wider issues, including the Iranian nuclear program. But there was uncertainty over the next steps.
The White House has postponed sending Vice President J.D. Vance to lead the new round of talks in Switzerland for now. It says plans for the technical talks have not been finalized yet, and the U.S. delegation is ready to depart at the first available opportunity.
Meanwhile, U.S. forces have lifted their naval blockade of Iranian ports, but American warships will remain in the general area. Maritime trackers said that 3 Saudi oil tankers left the Gulf through the strait on Thursday, while the loaded LNG vessel, Mraik, became the first such French vessel to make the transit since the start of the conflict. Iran says it will not collect any fees from ships for a period of 60 days.
All right, and for more details, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Take a look.
Vice President J.D. Vance is openly criticizing Israel's reaction to the Iran agreement, arguing that diplomacy, not endless military action, offers the best chance to prevent a wider regional war. The comments are significant because they expose tensions between the Trump administration and one of America's closest allies at a moment when negotiators are preparing to enter a new phase of talks with the Islamic Republic. For Israel, the concern is that the deal may leave Iran with too much room to maneuver. For the White House, the agreement is that a diplomatic opening is better than a return to open conflict. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
And attacks by Jewish settlers in West Bank have reached a record high in 2026.
The tensions have escalated yet again as they set fire to two mosques in West Bank. Thick plumes of smoke were seen billowing out of an impacted mosque's window in Jijilia. More than a dozen tires were used by settlers to set the mosque on fire. The burned rubber left a toxic stench. The walls, ceilings, as well as the floors were blackened by smoke and flames.
Well, this is not all. Graffiti readings "Revenge" and "High" from the Hilltop Youth was spray-painted in Hebrew on the walls of the mosque. Now, Hilltop Youth are settlers who are regularly accused of violence towards Palestinians. They seek to evict from the West Bank. While confirming the attack on the mosques, Israel's military stated that the suspects fled prior to the arrival of the forces. Locals recalled waking up post-midnight after hearing sounds of explosions inside the mosque.
When we saw the provocative and spiteful graffiti written by this unhinged occupation, or those the settlers, it showed they harbour abnormal hatred, whether against mosques, homes, or all Palestinian people.
This horrific attack comes just days after a report claimed that an Israeli government is set to pay 657 young Israeli settlers in West Bank $17 per day to cover food and clothes-related expenses. Close to $1.9 million will be spent as part of this initiative, supposedly meant to prevent violence against Palestinians.
Now, the human cost is immense. In this year so far, 55 Palestinians have been killed in settler violence, whereas 2,200 others have been displaced. As per UN, over 1,000 settler attacks resulting in casualties and property damage have been reported in the West Bank since the beginning of 2026. With an average of 6 incidents per day, the pace of settler attacks is higher than any previous year.
Now, earlier this week, Israeli security forces used tear gas and stun grenades in an attempt to disperse Palestinians who were protesting against a newly established settler outpost in West Bank.
Now, in the searing heat, some refugees were seen carrying sofas, gas cylinders and other belongings out of the Tulkarem refugee camp in northern West Bank. As they were allowed to move into their homes, however, a rude reality hit them, as they found most of their houses destroyed or uninhabitable with broken furniture, broken windows and rubble all over the place.
The Benjamin Netanyahu-led government's move to approve the expansion of a Jewish school for settlers living in West Bank's Hebron city also came in for huge criticism from the locals.
This decision will make our life much harder. We will not feel safe. It means more violence from settlers and aggression and restrictions from the Israeli military. It means that the services now, electricity and water and planning, it's in the hands of the settlers. And the settlers, they want to make our life harder to force us to leave.
Free, free Palestine! Palestine will never die! Palestine will never die!
Israel's unstinted support for Jewish settlers in West Bank continues to face ire across the world as well. For instance, over 100 activists staged a protest in Brussels ahead of the European Council summit, which is being held from June 18th to 19th, with banners of "We won't kneel to occupation" in the backdrop. They called upon European leaders to ban goods imported from Israeli settlements in West Bank.
Today, we demand the EU Commission enforce their own laws and stop buying stolen goods. Stop buying what Israel steals. We are all watching.
All right, another global news. Nearly a month ago, former CIA senior executive David Rush was arrested in connection with a $40 million gold theft case.
A new report has now raised concerns on how a criminal probe could expose highly sensitive details about America's secret intelligence operations. Now, while David Rush received gold bars and foreign currency from CIA from November 2025 to March 2026 for work-related expenses, the US spy agency was unable to ascertain the intended use of these funds. Subsequently, 303 gold bars worth over $40 million, $2 million in cash, and 35 luxury watches were recovered from his residence by FBI.
Now, Rush was no normal employee. He possessed top-secret clearance and had access to classified information. And as per a new report, he was a senior supervisor in CIA's Science and Technology Division. Now, this unit designs spycraft tools which agents use to intercept conversations, procure clandestine photos, and communicate.
According to the report, he operated a highly classified program approved by US Congress years ago to obtain critical information about American adversaries using large quantities of cash. Rush also held a rank that is CIA's equivalent of an army general.
And this is not all. The report alleged that he created a fake classified program related to continuity of government operations in case of a catastrophic emergency. Rush allegedly conducted a fake briefing with two colleagues on this program, which he claimed was run jointly with Pentagon. Now, after convincing them that it required tens of millions of dollars in funding, money was transferred to a military contractor who provided the gold bars.
Now, what helped the ex-CIA official get away with this? This was disguised as a special access program, as a result of which the two others involved, they weren't permitted to discuss it with other employees or supervisors. The opacity is such that reports suggested that some Air Force officials created a fake classified program last year, falsely asserting that the government had a secret alien program.
Now, what is baffling in this case is that Rush appears to have fooled America's preeminent spy agency for decades. And as per FBI, he provided false information about his educational background and also falsely claimed to be a military pilot.
Now, while both CIA and FBI have committed to pursuing justice in accordance with law, this case has put the spotlight on the risks faced when classified programs, covert funding and court proceedings collide.
And well, of course, now all eyes are now on whether this court trial will uncover details of CIA's clandestine operations. Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he is ready to negotiate with Russian President Vladimir Putin on ending the war in Ukraine.
But Europe needs to first shift into gear. Now, in an audio statement released by the Ukrainian presidential office, Zelensky described Putin as a madman who wants to get everything that we have burned. He urged the EU to fully commit to sanctions without loopholes and fund Ukraine. Listen to this.
Путін хоче, щоб у нас все горіло. І він безумець. Це партнери відчувають. Україна готова до перемовин з ним, незважаючи на це. Але Європа повинна включитись наповну, щоб у нас була сильна позиція. Включитись наповну по санкціям, без виключень по конфіскації, без виключень і по фінансуванню України.
Even as Zelensky seeks more active support from Europe, Bulgaria, an EU member, has said that it will veto EU sanctions package against Russia. Speaking to the press, Bulgarian Prime Minister Rumen Radev said that EU sanctions could negatively impact the Bulgarian economy. However, Radev said that Bulgaria will not obstruct the EU's common decisions on Ukraine.
Bulgaria has already expressed certain reservations about these sanctions because we have already stated our position that we will not allow sanctions that harm and pose a risk to the Bulgarian economy. Here, I can point out the risk to the functioning of Lukoil. I can point out risks for supplying the capital's metro with spare parts.
In Brussels, Zelensky met European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa. The meeting comes after the EU officially opened accession talks with Ukraine. Speaking at the meeting, von der Leyen vowed that Europe would stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes to defeat Russia.
This at a time where we send a very strong message also to Russia that we provide Ukraine with 90 billion euros loan for the next 2 years, So also to give a very strong message to say we're going to be by your side for as long as it takes.
NATO members Germany and Britain also pledged new support packages to bolster Ukraine's defenses, while Germany pledged $200 million for the procurement of guided missiles, as well as new air-to-air missiles. The UK pledged 150,000 Ukrainian-made drones and new air defense systems funded by the sale of frozen Russian assets.
Now, in a major setback for the Alternative for Germany, or AfD party, a top court in Bavaria has allowed German intelligence agencies to continue spying on the party.
Now, Germany has adopted strict measures against extremist movements ever since the end of World War II, which led to the collapse of Adolf Hitler's Nazi party.
Now, Bavaria's highest administrative court has ruled that the state's domestic intelligence agency can continue to monitor the AfD. The party had challenged the surveillance order and took its appeal to the state's top court after losing in lower courts.
But the court has rejected its plea and said the decision cannot be appealed any further. The court said the legal questions raised by the AfD had already been settled in earlier rulings. It also referred to decisions by Germany's Federal Constitutional Court and Federal Administrative Court, saying those judgments had properly examined both evidence against the party and concerns related to freedom of speech.
Now, according to the court, certain statements linked to the AfD crossed the limits of acceptable criticism of Germany's constitutional system. These included comments on re-migration, alleged affirmation of people with migrant backgrounds and Muslims, as well as rhetoric about overthrowing the government and continued attacks on Germany's democratic order.
Bavaria first announced plans to monitor the AfD in 2022, and an initial legal challenge failed in 2024. Several German states have taken similar steps, suspecting that the party may seek to undermine the country's constitutional order. The AfD has consistently argued that such surveillance is unjustified. We have some breaking news coming in right now from the United Kingdom, where Andy Burnham has won the Makerfield by-election for Labour Party.
Now, Burnham, who is Mayor of Manchester, has been elected as the new Labour Member of Parliament. And this victory opens path for Burnham to challenge Prime Minister Keir Starmer for party leadership.
And Labour secured victory with a majority of more than 9,000 votes. The party won 54% of the vote ahead of Reform UK on 35%, and it's widely accepted that Burnham would be a future challenger to Prime Minister Keir Starmer for the Labour leadership.
Well, the result is being seen as a major boost for Burnham's political standing within the Labour Party. For viewers who are just joining us, this is the latest we're getting in from the United Kingdom, where Andy Burnham has won the Makerfield by-election for the Labour Party. Well, Burnham, who is Mayor of Manchester, has been elected as the new Labour Member of Parliament.
Absolutely, and now this has cruised him to victory. His victory to a high-stake election, of course, in North England. It's now paving the way for him to challenge Prime Minister Keir Starmer for the leadership of the Labour Party in United Kingdom. And now, of course, Burnham had defeated his closest challenger, Robert Keenan, who is the candidate for the Anti-Immigration Reform UK in the seat of Makerfield. And now these votes results showed early on Friday, and this now secures the House of Commons seat. He needs to mount a bid for the prime ministership. His victory is likely to either precipitate Starmer's resignation or set off a leadership contest pitting the prime minister against the outgoing mayor. Of course, we'll have to wait and see how this goes for Burnham and Starmer in the UK.
All right, and here's a quick look at the images drawing our attention from around the world.
right, now it's time for a very short break on World DNA. We'll have lots lined up on the other side. And before we go, just a reminder to our viewers in India that you can watch all 2026 FIFA World Cup matches on Z5. Tune in and catch all the action.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. Where darkness hides behind every corner. Where the truth is stranger than fiction. A show that dives deep into the stories which shock and mystify. Unsolved murders. Psychopaths who defy explanation. International war crimes, and millions swindled in financial fraud. The victims, the accused, and the sinister plot. Prime Crime is your front row seat to darkness.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Beyond World is One, and this is World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar, and my colleague, Nisha Bisla. Let's begin with the headlines.
White House says JD Vance will not travel to Switzerland for planned Iran nuclear talks. Citing difficult logistics for negotiations, it adds that US team remains ready to depart once plans for technical talks are finalized.
JD Vance calls Trump's Iran deal a win for Americans, citing lower gas prices and resumed oil shipments through Hormuz Strait, says U.S. naval actions have helped ease shipping restrictions as part of the agreement.
Donald Trump says US expects a complete ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon, Hezbollah and Israel, urging regional parties to support ongoing negotiations following an agreement aimed at finding an end to the Iran-linked conflict.
Burnham wins Makerfield by-election, returning to Parliament after defeating Reform UK candidate. Says victory could be a final chance to change Labour and may pave way for a leadership challenge against Keir Starmer.
And the denial of basic freedoms have brought matters to a point where even demands for bread, electricity, rights and dignity are met with bullets and brutality.
India raises concern at the UNHRC over conditions in POK, citing deaths of protesters in Rawalakot and accusing authorities of suppressing basic rights. Indian diplomat Anupama Singh says protesters' demand for bread were met with bullets.
U.S. and Israel demand Hamas disarmament at UNSC, while Palestinian envoy Riyad Mansour accuses Israel of killing over 1,000 people and causing a humanitarian crisis. Israel rejects claims, blaming Hamas for exploiting aid and violence.
A group linked to Al-Qaeda claims attack on Diori Hamani International Airport in Niger's capital, Niamey, that killed at least 11 soldiers and 2 civilians. Security forces repelled the assault, killing 22 attackers in the fighting.
Cuba approves nearly 200 free market reform to tackle a deep economic crisis worsened by U.S. oil blockade. The measure is aimed to cut state control in opening sectors to private and foreign investment to tackle a deep economic crisis worsened by U.S. pressure.
Jonathan David scores a hat-trick as Canada crushed Qatar 6-0 as it moved close to the first-ever World Cup knockout stage. Qatar finished with 9 men after 2 red cards in a dominant Canadian win. We start this bulletin with some breaking news that's coming in from New York City, and we are getting more details about a suspected shooting at Times Square.
Absolutely, and now tourists and bystanders scrambled for cover after several gunshots were heard. It sent people running in all directions, and police say a suspect has been chased down. According to the initial details, at least one person has been taken to a hospital.
The shooting took place near the winning parade of the New York Knicks in Lower Manhattan. Officials say 10,000 police officers were deployed to secure the event. Now let's get you some of the reactions from eyewitnesses of the shooting.
So basically, I didn't see much, but I was down there, like right around the corner. Here, pop, pop, pop. I checked my phone. I see Instagram shots fired near Times Square. I went running over here. It said something about the Knicks parade after the Knicks parade, but the Knicks parade is over there downtown. But that's what I seen. It was near Times Square. I came running over here. They got the ambulance. They got the FDNY. They got everything.
All right, we'll get you all the details on that as and when we get more details on it. Moving on to other global news, India raised the deteriorating situation in Pakistan, occupied Kashmir, at the UN Human Rights Council,
accusing Pakistan of nurturing and deploying terrorism, while falsely portraying itself as a victim here. Now, India's first secretary at the United Nations, Anupama Singh, termed Pakistan a Frankenstein state. She rebuked Islamabad's actions that killed dozens of protesters at Rawalakot in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Singh said that the Union Territory remains an inalienable part of India, adding that the demand for bread was met with bullets and brutality. Listen to this.
Pakistan's propaganda cannot obscure the reality of repression in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The ongoing tragedy in Rawalakot the killing of hundreds of civilians and the brutal crackdown across Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir are the predictable outcome of a system built on forcible occupation and sustained through repression. Decades of military land grabs, demographic engineering, and the denial of basic freedoms have brought matters to a point where even demand for bread, electricity, rights, and dignity are met with bullets and brutality. This is the country where the sitting defense minister boasts of hosting, training, and deploying terrorists as state policy, and yet Pakistan calls itself a victim of terrorism. Indeed, a paradox which only Pakistan could sustain. It is a living example of a Frankenstein state which is shocked when its own monster bites back.
India's remarks came after dozens of civilians were reported dead after Pakistan security forces launched an operation against protesters in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir's Rawalakot. The group leading the protest accused authorities of using excessive force and intense shelling to break up the protests.
Now, Singh reiterated its stance on the abeyance of the Indus Waters Treaty, saying that Pakistan's continued use of terrorism as an instrument of policy, while demanding the privileges of cooperation it predicated on goodwill and friendship, which defied logic.
It defies logic that a state which exports terror as an instrument of policy continues to demand the privileges of cooperation predicated on goodwill and friendship. It is equally undeniable that the treaty is now outdated. No technical arrangement can remain frozen in time while the world around it is transformed.
India also rejected Jammu and Kashmir's reference in Organization of Islamic Cooperation statement and criticized Pakistan's continued attempts to raise the issue of Jammu and Kashmir at international forums.
We categorically reject the baseless and malicious allegations made by Pakistan. We also categorically reject the references to J&K made by the OIC. Pakistan's propaganda is designed to mask its domestic failures and support for terrorism. Its misuse of the OIC coordinator's role only reinforces this deception.
India maintained that Pakistan's claims on Jammu and Kashmir cannot alter the reality on the ground. New Delhi further said that Pakistan was attempting to divert attention from developments in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, where protests and unrest have intensified in recent weeks. And a special investigation team is probing the alleged theft of cash and jewelry from donation boxes at the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya.
Investigators have found clues suggesting possible tampering with CCTV footage. Now, during investigations inside the temple complex, officials examined surveillance systems, recorded footage, and security protocols. According to reports, the suspected CCTV tampering has led to SIT to focus on individuals responsible for monitoring and maintaining and overseeing the camera network. Ram Mandir Trust member Dr. Anil Mishra was summoned. Investigators are also examining the role of staff associated with CCTV monitoring, entry checks, and overall security operations at the temple. The chairman of Ram Mandir Construction Committee, Dripendra Mishra, has credited the Uttar Pradesh government with forming an SIT in less than 24 hours.
राज्य सरकार ने SIT से एक सप्ताह बाद कहा है कि प्रारंभिक रिपोर्ट दें और 2 सप्ताह में अपनी फाइनल रिपोर्ट दे दें। तो यह निश्चित रूप से कहा जा सकता है कि सारे तथ्य जो आपने कहा कि ढेर सारे सवाल हैं और उनका जवाब आना आवश्यक है श्रद्धालु की आस्था को पुनः प्राप्त करने के लिए, तो इन सवालों का जवाब निश्चित रूप से SIT के बाद उभर कर आ जाएगा।
Now, according to the documents examined by the SIT, nearly 10 crore rupees was spent on security at the temple complex over the past 11 months. The alleged theft of cash and jewelry from donation boxes, despite such expenditure, it has raised serious questions about the effectiveness of the security system.
The SIT team first arrived on 14th of June. They questioned over 40 people on the first day and nearly 30 people on day 2. In another news, a Myanmar military airstrike reportedly killed 7 civilians, including a 5-year-old child, in the country's conflict-hit western Rakhine state.
Well, reports citing a witness and a local rescue worker said that the strike took place on Wednesday around the town of Kiao Tao. The Myanmar military has not commented on the reports, and a rescue worker said that 3 military jets dropped 9 bombs in the area. He said 7 people were killed and 15 others were injured.
When we arrived to carry out the rescue work, the bodies had not been pulled out yet. We worked together with the authorities and local residents to retrieve them. Some of the bodies had no heads. Some had severed thighs. One side of the body of a 5-year-old child was badly torn.
The military fighter jets kept circling and dropping bombs over and over. All we could hear were the explosions, and we didn't even dare to go outside. We were just hiding under the house in fear.
A local shopkeeper said her husband was among those who were killed. She said that he was killed inside their house when he went to look for her during the strike.
I didn't realize my husband had been killed inside our house. I was looking for him when I didn't see him around. I later found his dead body in the debris.
Myanmar has been gripped by civil conflict since the military seized power in a coup in 2021, ousting the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi's. Right groups have accused the military of carrying out airstrikes that have killed civilians, an allegation the authorities have rejected in the past.
But Rakhine State is now largely controlled by the Iraqi army, the ethnic group armed fighting the military. Analysts say that the region continues to face a deepening humanitarian crisis amid the ongoing conflict.
Meanwhile, Myanmar's president is on a 5-day visit to China. A joint statement released after talks said Beijing supports Myanmar's efforts to achieve peace, stability, and national reconciliation.
Washington's most predictable drama has flipped. For over a year, President Donald Trump branded Jerome Powell a knucklehead for refusing to cut interest rates.
And on a Wednesday, with new Fed Chair Kevin Warsh holding rates steady at his very first meeting and half the Fed signaling a possible rate hike, Trump's reaction from Paris was, and I'm quoting here, "It's all right, whatever." Now, in this next report, we decode Trump's Fed U-turn and more. Take a look.
On Wednesday, President Trump, referring to new Fed boss Kevin Warsh, said,
"Look, I have a very talented guy, leave it up to Kevin. But I've always said, and I've said it for years, when you have a country that's doing well, the market should go up. The market should, and the reason they go down is if it's doing well, people have said, oh, we have to stop inflation. And it doesn't mean inflation. In fact, it could be just the opposite."
The Fed left rates unchanged, with about half the members signaling the next move to be a hike rather than a cut. So Trump's comment is not policy alignment, but a relationship pivot. But the core substance has not changed. Rates are frozen. Inflation is at a 3-year high of 4.2%, and the Fed's own dot plot now projects a quarter-point hike before 2026 is out. What changed is the name on the Fed door. Warsh's first Fed meeting delivered a striking statement, which was stripped to just 130 words from the 341 Powell used at his final meeting. No forward guidance was given, and full employment was not mentioned at all. A single line highlighted the Fed policy path. The committee will deliver price stability. And that is a hawkish declaration, with 9 of the Fed's 18 officials now penciling in higher rates this year. Just one opted for a cut in the dot plot projection, and Warsh did not submit his own rate forecast. The market reaction was a deep sell-off, wiping out $1.5 trillion in 10 minutes flat. Economists at Deutsche Bank called the presser clearly hawkish and said the Fed is not pivoting towards Trump's demand for lower rates. Instead, the central bank is projecting higher inflation. driven by the Iran war's oil shock and pre-existing structural pressures in services, housing and healthcare. Trump now faces a Fed whose new chair he personally anointed, who is functionally independent. The bottom line? Trump wanted cheaper money. Instead, he got a hawkish Fed chair who has eliminated easing bias from the statement. The president's whatever is not indifference. It is the sound of a political argument quietly running out of road. That signals a strategic retreat, dressed as nonchalance. The midterm calendar becomes extremely important as the real pressure on Wash will begin if inflation is still above 3% by October, which at the moment seems more likely. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that Apple has agreed to work with Intel to design and manufacture its chips in the U.S.
Now, the move comes as Apple seeks to strengthen and diversify its chip supply chain. In a post on Truth Social, Trump said that Apple will partner with Intel on chip design and production. The deal would shift part of Apple's supply chain towards domestic manufacturing in the United States. Well, Apple currently relies heavily on Taiwan-based TSMC, which also supplies high-demand chips to companies like NVIDIA and AMD. The Intel partnership could help Apple reduce dependence on a single manufacturer at a time when global demand for advanced chips is straining supply chains.
According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, Intel and Apple had been in talks for more than a year before reaching a preliminary deal in May. The agreement would give Intel a major new client in Apple, helping it compete with TSMC in advanced chip manufacturing. Intel has also recently started initial production of its new 18A manufacturing technology as it looks to expand its role in high-end semiconductor production.
The development comes as the U.S. government steps up efforts to secure domestic supply chains for critical technologies, including semiconductors. Now, the push for local manufacturing forms part of a broader strategy to reduce dependence on China and other foreign supply chains for key technologies. And the action continues in the World Cup. Canada thrashed 9-man Qatar 6-0 to secure their first ever World Cup victory.
And this is Switzerland. Reignited their campaign with a resounding defeat of Bosnia-Herzegovina. It was 8th time lucky for tournament co-host Canada as they secured their first ever World Cup win against Qatar. Canada had lost 6 of their matches at previous World Cups in 1986 and 2022. And drawn their first game in this edition. But on Thursday, they dominated Qatar, scoring half a dozen goals, a hat-trick from Juventus striker Jonathan David, 1 goal apiece from Michael Larin and Nathan Saliba, and a Mohamed Manai own goal sealed Canada's win.
However, the victory was marred by a serious left leg injury to midfielder Ismail Kohn, who was stretchered off after a challenge in the 51st minute. Qatar's Asim Maribo initially shown a yellow card for the challenge, which was subsequently upgraded to red. Now, Maribo's dismissal left Qatar down to 9 men, after Humam Al-Amin was also sent off in the first half for denying a goal-scoring opportunity. Canada duly made their numerical advantage count, scoring 3 times in the second half to crucially boost their goal difference. The win leaves them needing only a point against Switzerland to finish top of Group B.
Earlier, Switzerland got their campaign back on track with a 4-1 drubbing of Bosnia-Herzegovina at the Sophie Stadium in Los Angeles. Johan Manzambi scored twice while Ruben Vargas and Gran Saka were on target for the Swiss. Switzerland now have 4 points from 2 games, and they are dreaming of advancing beyond the last 16 for the first time at this World Cup.
Now, in the other game on Thursday, South Africa kept alive their slender qualification hopes for a 1-1 draw against the Czech Republic in Atlanta. South Africa 2 men sent off in the abject 2-0 defeat to Mexico in Group A last week. Teboho Mokoena's penalty earned a point for South Africa after Michael Sarilek opened the scoring for the Czechs. The draw kept both teams in hunt for the last 32, although they will almost certainly have to win their final Group A fixture to advance.
Now, England might have started their FIFA World Cup campaign with a victory, but head coach Thomas Tuchel had one unusual complaint after the match.
Well, following England's 4-2 win over Croatia, Tuchel called on FIFA to change the positioning of photographer during the pre-match ceremony. The England coach complained that the photographer blocked his view of the team while the national anthem was being played.
Well, speaking after the match, Tuchel said that I'm quoting here, "I'm begging FIFA to change the position of the photographer in the national anthem because I could not see my team in the national anthem and I was waiting for this moment. It was a very, very special moment today and I was standing in front of a wall of 50 photographers half a meter away and I could not see one single player and it ruined a little bit of my experience today."
While England opened their World Cup campaign with a 4-2 win over Croatia, the result was it has given Tuchel a positive start to his first FIFA World Cup as a national team head coach. All right, and in other news, Toy Story 5 is releasing in theaters today.
Taylor Swift has made a historic return to her country roots with, I'm quoting her, "I Knew It, I Knew You." And this is an original track written for the animated film Toy Story 5. The single immediately broke records, debuting at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 to mark Swift's 15th career chart topper and the first ever #1 hit for a Pixar production. And this marks the first time a female artist has ever achieved a top 10 debut on that specific chart since its inception in the 1990s. Co-written and co-produced by Jack Antonoff, the track is deeply inspired by Jessie, the franchise's beloved yodeling cowgirl. Swift, who described writing the song as both a musical departure and a homecoming, celebrated her lifelong love for the series at the film's Los Angeles premiere.
Now, she charmed fans by walking the red carpet with a vintage 1995 Toy Story VHS tape for the voice cast to sign. Performed her new single live, Toy Story also marks the coming together of $2 billion synergies in 2010 and 2019. The third and fourth installment of the movies crossed the $1 billion mark. Meanwhile, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, which started in 2023 and continued for 24 months, earned $2 billion from its tours.
And with that, we call a wrap to World DNA for today.
But before we let you go, here's a reminder to all our viewers in Delhi that you can watch all 2026 FIFA World Cup matches on Z5. Tune in and catch all the action live.
Get the latest update.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is one.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances. Power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
The Israeli drone is above our heads all the time in Lebanon. Around 169 buildings have been totally reduced to rubble. Every time there's a warning, they just come to this public area where there are around 200 tents and they reside for a while and then they go back to their home. Some of the Lebanese people enjoying their time, celebrating, singing, dancing, and some others forcibly displaced. From the southern suburb of Beirut, I'm Radi Francis for WION The World is One.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace?
best practices and breakthroughs, busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political